Hello, fellow traders. Welcome back. This is Ryan with another weekly market preview for the index futures. I hope you all doing well. I know the market in the past couple of weeks has been kind of choppy and hard to trade, so I hope you're not pushing with too much size and getting chopped up. It's only been the first month of the year for trading, and we still have the whole rest of the year. So just be patient, wait for the market to tip its hand to you. Okay, and with this being the last weekend of the month, let's go ahead and take a look at the monthly chart. And before I do, let me remind you that I'm not a licensed financial advisor and I'm not giving out any financial advice. This video is for entertainment purposes only. Okay, so here's the monthly chart for the dollar index. We see price rallied up into a old SIBI and then rejected. Zooming in, we can see we have this old monthly BISI. As price reject, it created a SIBI. Price consolidated, wicked down into the monthly BISI, rallied up into the SIBI, then displaced down, and now we're pretty much trading at equilibrium. You go from this high down to this low, and let me just make this thicker. You can see right here, currently price closed right here, pretty much at equilibrium. So, gonna have a neutral bias for the dollar index, but we'll go into a lower time frame and see how we can frame this both in a bearish sense and how we can frame this bullishly. One thing to note, we have a displacement up and displacement down, so this right here, I'm looking at it as a balanced price range. Okay, so going down to a weekly chart, let's go ahead and zoom in here. We see price consolidated, went down to the BISI, went up to the monthly SIBI, came back down. Here's the balanced price range. And this displacement right here, this candlestick, we're looking at that as an order block. Price consolidated a little bit at equilibrium, and then displays down lower, creating another SIBI here. So I'm looking at this again as an order block. Price rallied, and now it's currently trading into that order block here. And if we take the high and low, that's where we get this line. Last couple of weeks, we've wicked into the mean threshold of that order block, but we didn't close above it. So you can see whether or not this order block will hold as resistance. Now, remember this old order block, we have an order block nearby another order block, so we can view this as a propulsion block. So looking at this from a bearish point of view, we've had buy-side liquidity taken, so we're going to be looking for sell-side liquidity. Price displaced down twice, rallied up, and is currently in a propulsion block. So we can see that price, if this propulsion block holds, we can anticipate it shooting down sharply. Here's a volume imbalance to be taken, a weekly BISI. We're looking at the sell side below this low and this swing low. So that's how you can frame this in a bearish sense on the weekly. Now let's take a look at how we can frame this bullishly. So on the weekly, we went down into a weekly BISI that also lines up well with the top of the monthly BISI. Price displaced up, creating a fair value gap, also a volume imbalance. Now, it kind of looks like it could be heading for these relative highs on the weekly. So let's go ahead and just mark that out. This could be a potential liquidity pool that we will look at. Okay. And let me just go ahead and change the color to blue. Now going down to a daily. So we see that this right here could be a smart money reversal. Here we have first stage accumulation, expansion into a second stage accumulation. And if that will be the case, continuation on the expansion move, we will have a sharp move up to take out the buy-side liquidity here. Now, when it gets up here, we gotta see whether it can stay and close above any premium arrays, or will it reject and move down sharply. Now, if it does move down sharply, then we can shift our focus to this volume imbalance Remember the BISI here in the weekly BISI, but below these lows we have sell side, and even all the way back here we have sell side. So depending on how aggressively it moves on the downside, we could be looking at these as our potential targets. So I do favor a short-term bullish and then long-term bearish, but this order block back here could hold, and instead we could just go sharply down. So short term, it can go either way, but long term, I am bullish. I do favor the short term bullishness. Like this makes more sense to me to go ahead and get the liquidity above here before we head lower. But you got to acknowledge that it's kind of 50-50 at this point. So still, I say neutral bias. Don't feel too strongly one way or the other. Okay, so this is the ES continuous contract, and we can see that price has just been rallying up. Let's take a look at this portion right here. So price made a high, went back down, and came back into this BISI, the monthly BISI. And then it consolidated, rallied back up, creating a fair value gap here, came back to rebalance it, and took off, taking the highs here and the highs here. Now, we're going to maintain a bullish stance, but we could see some short-term retracement back into either this fair value gap or this fair value gap. But let's just do a projection here to see how high price can be going up. I'm using this one because this was a low that came back to take out the sell side right here and also went into the inefficiency. And then same thing here, this price retraced into this inefficiency, and by doing a projection here, we can see that we have a 1 standard deviation level, and both this one and this one projected lines up very well. So let's just make note of the lower one, which is 5146.75. So we'll make that note. Okay, so now we're in the weekly chart for the micro contract, and we see the price rallied up. Here we have a fair value gap where price came down about halfway to the consequent encroachment and then repelled away from it. We have a fair value gap here that took out an old high, and let's go down to the daily to take a look. Also, I've went ahead and noted that monthly projection we have here at 5146.75. This could be a key level. I'm just keeping it on the chart. Maybe we will get to it. We'll have some sort of retracement. Or it could just be a part where it consolidates for another launch higher. So not exactly sure what it's going to do, but I'm going to keep it here as a key level. Okay, down to a daily chart. We're going to zoom in here. So we see that we have a fair value gap here, and we have that old high that lines up pretty well. So if we are to see some short-term retracement, since we're looking for the dollar index to be a short-term bullish, we're going to look for indexes to be short-term bearish. And if it does have some sort of retracement, I could see it coming back into this fair value gap and maybe even going up to hit this old high right here, which is about halfway between this high and this low. So we have a low here, a high, a lower low, and then price displays above it. So this would be a breaker formation. So we could see retracement here for breaker formation, and then perhaps if this is support, we will see price go up even higher. Now what happens if it comes down below? Well, if it does come down below, I will want to see this fair value gap act as an inversion. So maybe come back up to act as resistance, and then we'll be aiming for the lows here, like so. And then if that should get more animated towards the downside, we'll be looking for liquidity below these even lows and looking for this inefficiency. Okay, so this is the Nasdaq continuous contract on the monthly chart. Similar to ES, price rallied up high, came back down into an inefficiency, and then broke the high and rallied up higher. So again, long-term bullishness. We see we have a monthly fair value gap here. Price rallied down into it and then took off. So here it's going to be a significant low here. Since this is the monthly chart, every candle is 1 month. So looking back, we're in January, but if we count starting from December, we had the December candle, November, and October. So this low right here will be the 60-day low. So if we're going to have some sort of market structure shift, looking for this low to get taken out on the monthly. Okay, there's the micro contract for March for the Nasdaq. And here we have that 60-day low marked out back in October. Now price went down here to rebalance some inefficiency and then it rallied above these highs. Here we have a fair value gap, and I'm just marking out the midpoint to see that price came back down to the midpoint and then displaced higher, leaving another fair value gap. Now, unlike the ES, the Nasdaq came down and rebalanced this entire gap rather than just come halfway and repel higher. So why this is significant is if we have a market structure shift and we're looking for lower prices, I wouldn't really be looking for this inefficiency here to provide much support when price comes down. I want to see price come down and just blast through this area, taking out the low here and the low here, and maybe looking for inefficiencies in here and aiming for the 60-day low. But let's go down into a daily chart. And we'll just take a look at the most recent price action here. I've marked out an old high back in December, and we see that price has displaced up. There's a fair value gap here and a larger fair value gap here. So if we are short-term bearish, it's really likely for price to come in and fill in some of this inefficiency. Where exactly? Well, it could be halfway between this low and this high, so the consequent encroachment of this fair value gap. But I'm looking at this old high here that is within the fair value gap. I really like that one. And if we go ahead and draw from this top to this bottom, we can see that the midpoint equilibrium is right over here. And we have a old SIBI here that goes into another fair value gap. So this could be another point where price will draw to. This is a inverted fair value gap. We have the old high, this is also a breaker. And then we have a fair value gap here, and of course the order block underneath. So a lot of confluences in this area to draw price. So definitely looking for some of the liquidity here to get taken, at least in the short term. And we'll have to keep an eye on whether price wants to go through it and then come back up using parts of it as resistance, or will it come down and use it as support to launch price higher. Thanks so much for watching this video, and if you like this kind of content, please help me out by leaving a like. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll know when I upload the next weekly preview or any special videos that I have in store for you guys. But until next time, good luck trading.